Sarvabhuta So we'll do the word for word meaning. Tad, therefore, Gacha, come, Dhruva, Bhadram, good fortune, Te, unto you, Bhagavatam, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Adhoksjam, who is beyond the concept of material senses, Sarvabhuta, all living entities, Atma, Vena, by thinking of them as one. Sarvabhuta, in all living entities. Atma, the super soul. Vigraham, having form. Translation. My dear Dhruva, come forward. May the Lord always grace you with good fortune. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond our sensory perception, is the super soul of all living entities, and thus all entities are one, without distinction. Begin, therefore, to render service unto the transcendental form of the Lord, who is the ultimate shelter of all living entities. You may repeat. My dear Dhruva, come forward. May the Lord always grace you with good fortune. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond our sensory perception, is the super soul of all living entities. And thus all entities are one, without distinction. Begin therefore to render service unto the transcendental form of the Lord, who is the ultimate shelter of all living entities. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila. Here the word Vigraham has specific form. Having specific form is very significant. It indicates the absolute truth is ultimately the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is explained in the Brahma Samhita, Sachidananda Vigraham. He has form, but his form is different from any kind of material form. The living entities are the marginal energy of the Supreme Form. As such, they are not different from the Supreme Form, but at the same time, they are not equal to the Supreme Form. Dhruva Maharaj is advised here to render service unto the Supreme Form. That will include service to other individual forms. For example, a tree has a form, and when water is poured on the root of the tree, the other forms, the leaves, twigs, flowers, and fruits are automatically watered. The mind-wide conception that because the absolute truth is everything, he must be formless is rejected here. Rather, it is confirmed that the absolute truth has form, and yet he is all-pervading. Nothing is independent of him. Om Jnana-Timirandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshur-militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Salvitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Dadati Swapadantikam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dilabandhu Chakapate Gopesha Gopivikanta Radhakanta Namaste Taptikanchana Gauragi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhescha Kripasindhubhevcha Patidanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna Welcome to today's class, and we are at a very interesting part in the Bhagavatam where Dhruva Maharaj, being a pure devotee of the Lord. So we'll just backtrack a little so that you get the understanding where we are at the point. So Dhruva Maharaj is a very great devotee of the Lord, and prior to this section was that he was insulted by his stepmother, who asked him not to sit on the lap of his father, and his, he became very angry, and he approached his mother, Suniti, and there his mother told him, well, I cannot do anything because your stepmother, Surichi, is the favorite of your father, so better you pray to God. So then he asks, well, dear mom, where can I find God? And she says, I know that the rishis go to the forest and there they meditate upon the Lord, so maybe you should do the same. And that's when he left home and he went to the forest. And he went to the forest and he meditated and he chanted the mantra Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, and the Lord appeared before him. And in this way he got the darshan of the Lord. And so after his austerities of 6 months, he went back home, and then he learned that actually this is so he became king to some, he became king, and then he learned that his the Yakshas had killed his brother, and he wanted to take revenge, and that's when he started to annihilate all the Yakshas. And so this is what happened. He was fighting very vigorously, killing all the Yakshas, and then he was approached by his grandfather, Swayambhuvamana, and his grandfather asked him, why are you killing all these Yakshas? Just one of them killed your brother, and now you're killing all of them. You're basically getting rid of them. So better you stop your killing, and not to offend, the Kuvera, who is basically, in charge of the Yakshas. So you better stop this now. And then Dhruva, he basically stopped to listen to his father, and he stopped this killing. And then Kuvera approached him, and Kuvera is offering these prayers to Dhruva Maharaj, or this glorification of Dhruva Maharaj. So we're on text 5, we'll just read the verses from text 1 onward, and we'll just hear the praise of the bearer. So I'll just read it in English, get an understanding. The great sage Maitreya said, my dear Vidura, Dhruva Maharaj's anger subsided, and he completely ceased killing Yakshas. When Kuvera, the most blessed master of the treasury, learned this news, he appeared before Dhruva, while being worshipped by Yakshas, Kinnaras, and Channaras. He spoke to Dhruva Maharaj, who stood before him with folded hands. master of the treasury Kubera said, O sinless one, O sinless son of a Kshatriya, I am very glad to know that under the instructions of your grandfather, you have given up your enmity. Although it is very difficult to avoid, I am very pleased with you. Actually, you have not killed the Yakshas, nor they are killed by your brother. For ultimate cause of generation and annihilation is the eternal time feature of the Supreme Lord. So we see here that it was the Lord's desire that this happened, because all these pastimes in the Bhagavatam is actually there for our purification, so we can learn from these pastimes, right? So and here it says that eternal time was actually the cause of the destruction of the Yakshas and of your brother as well. Misidentification of oneself and others as I and you on the basis of bodily concept of life is a product of ignorance. This bodily concept is the cause of repeated birth and death, and it makes us go on continuously in material existence. My dear Dhruva, so this is verse 5 now. My dear Dhruva, come forward. May the Lord always grace you with good fortune. The Supreme Personality Godhead, who is beyond our sensory perception, is a supersoul of all living entities, and thus all entities are one without distinction. Begin therefore to render service unto the transcendental form of the Lord, who is the ultimate shelter of all living entities. So this is the verse, today's verse. And in the purport we see that the Prabhupada is speaking about how the Lord's form is totally spiritual, right? And he quotes the verse from Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadi Adi Govinda Sarvakaranam. But here he just uses Sachidananda Vigraha, which means that the Lord's form is such Chir and Ananda, it's eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. So in this way it is, and Prabhupada says that it's different from our forms. We also have forms, right? And the living entities around us have forms. So our form is material. We have this material body, right? And the forms are there, the trees and the shrubs and the animals. They also have forms, right? And it's different from the Lord's form. The Lord's form is Sachidananda, full of knowledge, full of bliss, and is eternal. But our form is full of ignorance, because we are born, out of our mother's womb. We are totally ignorant. We don't know anything, and we have to learn from scratch 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, like this. And our form is not temporary, right? And it's subject to death. But the Lord's form is eternal, and when He appears in this world, He appears in His same self-form, from the spiritual world, He appears here in this material world. So, therefore, His form is Sachidananda Vigraha. And Prabhupada compares it to the twigs, flowers, and fruits, the leaves in the tree, basically. It also has a form. He says, when you pour water on the root of the tree, then the other forms also, such as the flowers, the twigs, and the root, which is the flowers, twigs, and fruit, are automatically watered. But he says the Mayavada concept is that everything, the absolute truth is everything, right? And therefore he must be formless. So this is the Mayavada conception, that God is formless, He's just some energy, that. But then you pray to God, right? And when you pray to God, doesn't He hear you? He hears us. He hears our prayers, right? So if He hears our prayers, that means He has to have ears. Yeah? If God hears our prayers, He has to have ears. And that means He has to have a form to have an ear. So in this way, Prabhupada is stressing the point of God having a form. So also in the Brahma Samhita, very nice descriptions of Krishna, Bhagavatam Shamasitam Pura Sundarangam Kandarpakotikamaniya Viseshasopam Govindamadi Purusham Namaham Bhajanami. That here is Govinda, right, our altar, Krishna, and he is standing in a Tribanga form, in the threefold bending form, and he has peacock feather in his hair, and he holds it to a flute. And his body is so beautiful, right? So every day our deities are dressed with new garments. Twice a day, actually, they are dressed with beautiful garments. Why? Because God is a person, and we have to reciprocate to him as a person, and we offer foodstuffs to him like this throughout the day. So this is worshiping the deity form of the Lord. So recently, I was basically listening to Friday actually, my spiritual master was giving a very nice descriptions of the Lord's forms, basically, and now I'll take you to Vrindavan, this journey to Vrindavan, and describing the Lord's form, and how, the Lord is very beautiful, and he does have a form. Right? And like in all our Islam temples around the world, the Lord is dressed and ornamented and fed like this, and we have a lot of reciprocation with him. So here, Sri Rangadevi has actually taken out these this nectar from the archives of the Vrindavan Institute, and it's very, very beautiful descriptions of the Lord. So he says that Krishna wears on his feet kunkuma, reddish vermilion, made of filaments of flowers. So you will find on our deities also that Krishna's feet is red in color, right? So he wears this vermilion or this kunkum, right? That's made up of filaments of flowers. So that's a very beautiful description. So when we're taking darshan of the Lord, then we need to actually take darshan from his feet onward, right? You don't go straight and look at Krishna's face. No, you start from his feet, because this is our humility, right? We start from Krishna's feet. This is our surrender. We always surrender unto the Lord's lotus feet. So then we start with his feet, and when we actually look at, take darshan of his feet, we can understand, yes, that this red filament is actually kumkum that's on Krishna's feet, right? And then in the Srimad Bhagavatam 5.25.1, there's a description given, having washed the lotus feet of the Lord, the Ganges assumed a pink color. Right? So you remember that from the Bhagavatam, that when the Lord pierced the universe, the coverings of this universe, and in the form of Lord Vamana, and from his feet, emanated the Ganges, right? And she flowed from the spiritual world to this material world. And that is how we have the Ganges, and we can actually take our vows in the Ganges, and in that way, cleanse ourselves of all sin, because the Ganges is emanating from the lotus feet of the Lord. So in this way, this is being described. And then it is being described that he wears the nukura on his ankles, right? And it is being described that he wears a ruta nukura, which makes a sweet jingling sound, right? And Krishna's ankles, when he wears an ankle belt, right? And he walks in the forest raising his cows, and you can identify Krishna because you can hear the sound of his sweet ankle bells jingling. So this is how we can identify where Krishna is, right? So Krishna cannot hide, because he can be easily identified by his nukura, by the sweet jingling sound of the ankle bells. So, and then it is being described that these nukuras are actually adorned with Padma Raga, or gems. Padma Raga actually means the reddish ruby that's on his on the ankle belt. But in the nectar of devotion 2.1.360, it is being described that a wonderful golden girdle belt. So now we're going from the feet to the ankles and then up his to his waist, and it's been described that he wears a beautiful golden girdle belt around his waist, which is studded with diamonds and various jewels like this. So Krishna wears this beautiful girdle, around his waist, right? And then we go now to, he also wears armlets, right, on his arms, and a moon-shaped necklace, and he wears basically around his chest. He wears pearls, around his neck, like a mala, a string of pearls around his neck. And I was reading in the Bhagavatam, they're describing these pearls as they represent the living entities, all of you, who are engaged in the service of the Lord. That's what this pearl necklace actually represents. The living entities who are engaged in the service of the Lord, basically the devotees. So in this way, when we take darshan of the Lord and he's wearing a pearl necklace, we can try to understand that these are devotees, these are the devotees of the Lord, that is represented by his pearl necklace. And what else? Yeah. And then he also wears finger rings on his finger. He wears rings, and it is being described that actually he wears a crown, right? And the crowns are studded with diamonds, pearls, rubies, and emeralds like this. And there are different kinds of crowns that Krishna wears. And these different kinds of crowns actually is being described here. And it is called, one is called the Keyura, which tilts to the right. The crown is this, and one crown is made of metal, and it turns to the left. It turns to the left in order to, because everything in the spiritual world is a person, is a personality. Even the crown is a personality. The ankle belt is a personality, right? And the crown is basically on Krishna's head, and it wants to take darshan of Radharani's feet. So therefore it tilts to the left so that it can take darshan of Radharani's feet, because the crown also has so much love for the divine couple, for Radha and Krishna. So like this, this may come to us as a surprise that every thing in the spiritual world is a personality. And we also have relationships with Krishna in the spiritual world, but we don't know what our relationship is. So therefore Prabhupada has introduced this chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, so that we can remove the dirt from our hearts and we can uncover our real spiritual forms, in the spiritual world. So just by this process of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us in this age of Kali Yuga, that we can actually cleanse our hearts and uncover that form that we have in the spiritual world. That's right? So in this way now, let's just go to another type of crown. Gurudev says that it's a triangular crown, Krishna wears maybe one peacock feather at some point, and he wears 3, and he wears 5, and he wears 7. So it depends, But this crown has an opening for 3 peacock feathers on the crown. So another crown is called Kuleha. It's a round crown, and it is studded with gems and stones with pearls hanging down Krishna's forehead. So there's pearls hanging down on Krishna's forehead. And this is actually worn by Radharaman in Vrindavan, and it's only worn on the appearance day of Lord Radharam or Rakshabandhan. Right? Rakshabandhan is on the day of Radharam's appearance day. So this crown is worn on that day, where it's it's studded with gems and stones, and there's a pearl hanging on Krishna's forehead. So why I'm describing all these things to you is because we must understand that Krishna has a form, and we need to adorn him in beautiful ways in order to attract the living entities. The deities in the temple is there for us to attract the living entities to Krishna's lotus feet. When people walk in here and they look at the form of Krishna and they appreciate that he's so beautiful. Krishna is so beautiful. And in this way, when they appreciate Krishna as being so beautiful, then their devotional prema begins. It starts to sprout like this. So therefore we have deity worship in our temples, and also, to keep up to the standards of cleanliness, because when you worship a deity, you have to be absolutely clean, right? So it's therefore Prabhupada has introduced deity worship in all our temples. And then there's a mukut or a crown, and it's called Mayura mukut, the crown in the form of a dancing peacock. Right? We haven't seen that, right? The crown in the form of a dancing peacock. So, actually, sometimes we adorn the Lord like that, with the feathers of the back, all opened up. Did you see that? Sometimes on our deities, the feathers of the back are all opened up. So that's in the form of the dancing peacock. And dancing peacock's feathers are all opened up, right? And so like that. And then another crown is called Kanatopi, which covers Krishna's head and his ears as well. And another crown is called the Gwalatopi, which is, I don't know, sometimes you may have seen that we adorn Krishna with this huge triangle type of crown, that tilts to the right side sometimes, like that. So that's called a Gwalatopi. Gwala actually means a covered boy, right? And Topi means a crown or a hat. So, and then there's one called a Chura. It's similar to the other one, the rectangle, the triangle one, but it tilts to the left side, and it is seen on every Ekadasi. It can be seen on Radharaman. And then there's another ornament that's on the turban of the Lord, and that's called seal pin, which is embedded with ruby, emerald, sapphire, and pearls. Right? And there's another ornament called a Avali, which is a pearl mala or a pearl rosary, right? And it's there on the top knot of the Lord. And we also have this on our Lord, Giriraj, that you have this string of pearls around and the seventh is called Satyajita. Also, Krishna wears feathers of white, gold, and black peacocks. Right? And it has been described also that he wears feathers from the sulka bird. Okay, we don't know what bird is that. From a parrot as well, and from swans. So there's a pastime that is being described. So one day after lunch, all the boys were resting, and Subal Saka suggested that they adorn Krishna and Balaram in the same way that Krishna adorned Srimati Rangadevi at Srinad. So the boys got up and they actually collected all these ornaments, to adorn Krishna. They made ornaments from flowers and from forest flowers like this, and they adorned Krishna. And before they could actually adorn Krishna, they seated Krishna and Balaram on the platform, and they collected leaves, flowers, and vines. They washed Krishna's lotus feet, and dabbed him with a wet cloth. And whilst Madhumangal chanted the Purusha Shruta praise. So you will see that we also do this during our Janmashtami festival, right? Where Krishna is bathed in all these substances, right? Amrit, there's 5 types of substances that Krishna is bathed with, and there's very elaborate type of worship that we do, right? It's very elaborate, and he's actually showered also with water, right? And so our Janmashtami festival is coming in September, and if you haven't seen that, then you have to come and witness this Abhishek ceremony of Radha and Krishna, which is actually being described here how the Kalma boys are actually worshipping Krishna and Balaram in this manner, right? And then it is said that Madhumangal, he chanted Purusha Shukta praise. Now when we are basically doing Abhishek, on the altar we chant the Govindam praise, like I just go to my verse now. Right? So we offer these prayers and we on the altar. It's meditation there, offer it loud, but in our minds when we're doing Abhishek on the altar, then we recite these prayers in our minds. And so there's a whole process of how to worship the deity on the altar. It's just not any hodgepodge. We have to follow directions that's given to us, right, by the acharyas on how to do deity worship. So we follow a certain procedure that we worship the deity, right? And so like this, and then the Kama boys, they brought in a tray of colored minerals, garlands, and fresh sukla. Then the boys decorated their faces, meaning Krishna and Balaram's faces, with emblems, with images of fish, birds, and flowering vines. The Gopas were very expert in decorating Krishna and Balaram, just as the Gopis are. They decorate Radha and Krishna like this, and they adorn them, right? And the Manjaris and the Gopis, they actually decorate and adorn Krishna with all these ornaments and clothing. So just like this, the Kama boys also, they also adorn Krishna and Balaram with all these flowers and vines and different minerals that they collect like this. And it is being described that there's a competition between the Gopis and the Gopas, like who decorates the Lord the best, right? And this competition is not about, envy. It's not about envy, like I'm doing the best and you are not like that. It's basically about admiration of both parties, that we can adorn Krishna the best, and they admire each one's decoration, like this. So, because in the spiritual world, there's no envy, there's always admiration and glorification, right? So then Srila Gurudev actually quotes a poem written by a Vaishnava saint called Chaturabhuja Das, and this beautiful poem I'll now recite to you, and you'll see how much of feeling that this poem was written. And he says, "My dear friend, look at Krishna, who lived Giriraj mountain, and who is a connoisseur of all devotional moments. Every moment of every day, his appearance is new and fresh, and his ever-changing new beauty is impossible to describe. His ornaments and garments are forever new, and of variegated colors. Every limb is an ocean of loveliness that captivates millions of cupids. The waves of beauty in that ocean steal away the mind of the whole universe. Drink the nectar of the form of my Lord Giriraj, Sri Giridhara. Base your entire life on the nectar and remain always in his shelter." So, yes, devotees, so we also have, sentiments or emotion, feelings as we come in front of the Lord and we admire him. So we can also write poems, about glorifying the Lord in this way. And we can come and read it in front of Krishna and be very pleased with that. So I'm running out of time. And if you'd like to contribute to this class, you're most welcome to. Hare Krishna. If there's any questions or anything you'd like to say, anything that actually has touched your heart, you can comment. If there's nothing, then we'll close. Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada